Okay, welcome back, guys. I'm so excited. I have this like beautiful, shining, like beam of light. I have Sarah Joe. She's just, if you're not on Facebook, you need to go find her, but she is a feminine embodiment mentor. And she just hosted or is actually in the middle of it's still going, this beautiful summit, this Girl Talk Summit, and invited me and I talked with her and I was just like, this woman is so amazing. She needs to come on my podcast. What are we doing? Sarah, I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I loved our interview. I keep listening to it.
Really? Oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
love that.
it was
Thank you.
so good.
It was. I think that we had a really good flow, and I think that we have similar, like feminine lineages. Like I think we believe in the same things, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. And it's so nice because there is a lot of nuance and there are a lot of different conversations around this topic. It seems to have become quite the hot topic in the past few
Yeah,
years, but it's so nice to meet somebody where you really align.
totally. Yeah. And I think that that is like, so when we're looking at feminine embodiment, what do you feel? Because again, I know where we differ, but what do you feel like is your perspective on it that might not fit the norm?
Well, I am just so tired of this narrative that the feminine is sitting around taking bubble baths all day and being fed grapes by her lover. Well, that is a really self-care and being taken care of in this beautiful way. It's a huge part of it, but it's only part of it. And I
Mhm.
think we have visions and we have dreams and we have the real work that it takes to keep a home and run a business and be in a relationship. Or for some of us, we're moms. And there is this beautiful piece of action and showing up and getting the work done. And you can still be a beautiful, flowing feminine woman and really get a lot done.
Yeah, I love that, which I totally agree. Like that was one of my, because I feel like you and I have been teaching femininity for a while now before it became popular, but that was kind of one of my icks because I was like, well, I'm never gonna be this like just like in the field in a dress and like, you know what I mean? Like that's just not me. So I almost felt shame. I don't know if you like in right because I didn't fit that. And
Yes. Just being somebody that has a work ethic and has things that they want in life and isn't afraid to take action towards those things kind of sets you apart in this world, I feel.
yeah, totally. And I think that for a lot of people that they fall into like the feminine leadership, which then to me also doesn't fully, because I'm like, oh, but our leadership is masculine. So there's like some nuances there as well, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I think that there's no way to do it wrong. And
mhm,
I think that a lot of us, because it's not new, but it's reawakening on the planet. Like the feminine is coming forward, and there's a lot we need to heal because we have been masculinized as women for so long. But I I feel sometimes when we're learning something or relearning for the first time, we get into this trap of trying to do it perfectly or trying to
mhm.
do it the way that someone else did it that worked for them instead of finding our own way.
Yeah, which is I think where you and I really connect on that level, where it's like our own version of femininity and flavor of femininity, which makes me wonder, because like this has really opened up in the past few, like I would say 6 years ago or so, this opened up for me. So it's like for you, have you always been a really feminine woman, or you were more so like the masculine career? Like I want to know your backstory. Like how did you get into this?
Well, I was the girliest little girl. And it was not, my family didn't love me for that. Like, they really valued being tough and being like a tomboy and I was just like, I want to play with Barbies and do my hair, you know? So I fought against my femininity for so long because I was really taught by my family and by our culture in general that it just wasn't valuable and it
Hmm.
wasn't acceptable. And I've been told my whole life, like, you're too soft, you feel too much, you're too sensitive, you need to develop a thicker skin, you need to become more assertive. And so I would really try to put on this more masculine costume and approach the world in that way. And I've always been a worker bee. I've always had 2 or 3 jobs at a time. Like from the moment I was old enough to babysit, I was grinding. So then there's that piece too of like, I can really work, but I just felt like I was running on a treadmill. Like I was showing up, I was doing all of the things I was supposed to do to create the result. But where I really came up against this huge wall was in my relationships.
Mhm.
Because I think you can get pretty far in your masculine when it comes to like working hard or crushing it in the gym. Like, yeah, masculine energy works.
Yeah.
But when it came to relationships, I was like, why can't I have a successful relationship? And what I came to learn is that I was approaching relationships with the same masculine energy that I was approaching everything else with. And it really doesn't work if you want to be in partnership with a masculine man, which I did.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was my huge awakening of like, I keep having the same pattern show up over and over again in relationships, and it's not good. And realizing I'm the problem, which is a great
Mhm.
thing to realize. Because if
Yeah.
you're the problem, you're also the solution.
100%. Yeah, it's like one of those like catch 22 where you're like, oh no, like I'm the issue, but then oh wait, I can actually fix this.
Mhm.
Wow, I'm like, can you just tell me why? Like, I really want to get to know you right now. The grinding. Did you just love money? Do you love work? Like, I want to hear about that too.
Well, part of it, I grew up in fundamentalist religion. Like, I don't know if you know, like the Shiny Happy People documentary or like the Duggar family, but
Yeah.
it was very similar. Like,
Okay.
have as many kids as you can. And I'm the oldest of nine. And we
Wow.
just didn't have money. Like, we didn't have resources because there were so many kids, and my mom didn't work, and my dad was trying his best, but it's hard supporting 9, 10 people. Um, and so if I wanted anything, I kind of had to work. And just realizing that like work gave me agency and freedom and options and I'm a generator. So I don't know, like I think I
Mm.
just work too.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question too. I'm like, what's your, because I'm a manifesting generator, so I totally relate to like the worker bee vibe. And because what's really interesting about like your story is that you were really girly as a little girl. And then, okay, there were like masculine shells, but it feels like your masculine shells. I'm gonna analyze you. Is that okay? I'm
Okay,
like,
yeah, totally.
I'm like, maybe I should ask permission first. But then the masculine shells, it feels like yours weren't in regards to I have to become successful to prove myself. It feels like yours were more so, okay, I can't be sensitive. Being girly isn't really valuable, things like that. But the work ethic is just your true, like, coding, your, like, who you are,
Mhm.
right?
I think it is just who I am. If I have too much time on my hands, I get antsy and I'm like, I have to do something.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think that that's what's so cool about like why I love your teaching so much because again, like I don't know if you went through this phase when you started healing your feminine energy, but I went through a phase where I was like hustle, hustle, hustle. I was working with male entrepreneurs and then I was going to these events in the US, like which are just like hundreds of like these guys that are like drop shipping, like all these things, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like building this coaching business like in that way. And then I come into like David Data, the Way of the Superior Man, which again now I have like I've picked and chosen what I like from that. And then I went through this phase of like no more work. Like you know what I mean? Like you just like you're not allowed to work, you just need to be provided for. And I did this twice in the past few years where I was like, I tried once, I was like, okay, I'm gonna let go of my business, I'm gonna go act and model and just like go back to school. And after a year, I was like something, and again, I was like busy the whole time, right? You're in school, university, like crazy. And then acting, they work you to the bone, like they really do. And like the auditions and the tapes. So like I was doing a lot, but there was like zero money coming in, obviously. And at the end of the year, I was like, I feel like I'm abandoning myself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So then I had to go through this really interesting thing that was like, okay, then what is femininity and like what is my femininity if it isn't just grazing around, like allowing yourself to be completely supported by man,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Mhm. Yes, so I had always kind of been on my own. Like I didn't really have because I couldn't make a relationship work to save my life. So it was just,
Yeah.
and my family they moved away. They weren't supportive of I think a lot of it had to do with like the religious thing, but it was me and that was it. I didn't have anything to fall back on. And when I met Corey, it was the end of 2019. My business I'm also a massage therapist, and I have had my own business since 2018 doing that. And it was going very well. It was very successful very quickly. And I met Corey. It's the end of 2019. 2020 comes. My business gets completely shut down.
Mm.
There's nothing I could do. And even when we were allowed to reopen, no one wanted to come because you can't obviously so a lot of my clients were like in the more vulnerable age group. They're seniors, didn't want to come. And so I went from having a pretty thriving business to nothing overnight. And Corey completely supported me financially. And this is a kind of newish relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a powerful lesson that I could be provided for. And it did feel wonderful to have him there in that way when I needed him. But the way it is now, I still experience a massive amount of provision in my relationship, but it's not just about money.
Mm-hmm.
I could have a life where like he was fully supporting me, but we have dreams together and we have dreams that feel good. It feels good to work together towards the things that we want instead of putting all of that on him. And I think
Yeah.
there's so many more ways the masculine provides for us than just financially.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And for me, I was so lucky because similar to you, always alone, divorced, like there wasn't a man that was providing. Luckily,
Yeah.
when you go to school in Ontario, like in Toronto, if you're a mom, it gets like completely funded. I have a bit of student loan. So that was like a year of like, there was like a form of like cosmic masculine provision, you
Yeah.
know? And then later on, similar to you, when I got back with my partner, Julio, he supported me for 7 months. And I was like thinking like I'm gonna be feminine and like stop like, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
after 7 months, he and I both sat with each other. We're arguing all the time. And he was like, where's my like, excuse my language, but he's like, where's my sexy bitch? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I was like, she's in my business. Like that's who I am. So I love that you had a similar experience like that too, which just goes to show that like you have the feminine energy, you can be provided. Because some women, and I know you come across this, some women, they're not even actually open and available for that yet. Any form of provision, right?
Mm. Yes, it's very vulnerable to be
Yeah.
provided for.
How so? Can you tell me why that feels? Because other women, they just do it so naturally, right? So what feels vulnerable about that?
Well, I think there's a stigma in our society about women who are provided for. We call them gold diggers, trophy wives, sugar babies, nothing
Mhm.
positive, nothing
True.
positive at all. And then
Yeah.
also just realizing that like all of the what ifs of life, like
Mhm.
what if the relationship doesn't work out? What if he dies? There's all these things that could happen to a woman when she's solely relying on a man to provide for her. And I think ultimately having the man as provider works really well during certain seasons of life. Like if you've just had a baby,
Mhm.
like you should be provided for, you should be taken care of. Or
Yeah.
maybe this is just really what you want in your family. Like you've chosen that you want to stay home and raise your kids or do whatever, and he's providing, and it can work so beautifully. But we've also seen it backfire. We've seen it not
Yeah.
go so well. And so I think anytime you're relying on someone for provision, it's scary. And then, we have this cultural narrative that like men are dangerous and men are prone to cheating, all these negative things that we believe about the masculine that couldn't be farther from the truth. I do think that there are good and bad men, but there's a
Mhm.
lot more good men out there, but
Yeah.
it's a combination of things, I think.
Yeah. What's interesting is as you were talking, it kind of like hit me that like what we want is like again like the perfect provision for ourselves, right? So it's like there are women that want to be right. Everything comes down to like yourself and the truth. But like you said, provision isn't just financial, which I do want to chat about too, because I think that that is something that like the quote unquote gold digger, sugar babies, etc., they're open for financial provision, but they're not open for the other forms of masculine provision, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Which,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I feel provided for in my relationship that like, first of all, he does make more money and he does pay more of the bills, and it feels wonderful. It feels wonderful because I would not, even just having two incomes feels wonderful because we have the kind of life that we wouldn't be able to have, or that I was never able to have when I was just on my own, paying my own way.
Mhm.
I have a nicer house. I have a nicer car. I have nicer vacations. I have more fun. There's, extra money at the end of the month. There's that wonderful feeling of partnership and of being taken care of. But far above and beyond that, it's like that feeling in the middle of the night when you hear a scary noise and he's there, or the fact that we can take our camper out and he's hitching it and unhitching it and fixing the problems. And like, I'm just like, I'll clean the inside. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that. There's so many things that we do together that I would never be able to do on my own, or I just wouldn't choose to. Um, just having someone at the end of the day that's got your back and that's going to be on your side. That's so valuable. And that
Yeah.
is the vision.
Yeah, 100%. I also feel like one of the forms of provision from the masculine that I really struggled with because of my ego was like their foresight and their ability to see like where we're maybe falling short or our own little things, right? Because like the masculine, he's so coded for the physical realm, like, and then we're so spirit, right? I feel like we have so many beautiful codes from the masculine spiritually, and then he has such good like wealth, business, you name it codes. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like that was such an interesting form of like provision that he would bring to me, like, oh, I'm noticing this in your business, or like this, or like, oh, this is your thing, and this is what. And I would just, it was very challenging for me. And then I had to realize, like, no, that's actually a form of his provision. Like, he wants to build you up, he wants to help you and pour into you. And that's his way of pouring into you, which is not easy.
Totally. There's so many times he has this like, I'm like, everyone's amazing. And I see the best in everyone and the potential. And he said to me before, like I had a business partnership and he was like, this isn't good. Like this, it was a very short-term thing. It didn't last. And he was like, this is not good. Like this is holding you back. Like you need to just go out on, like you're being used in this situation. And I was like, no,
Mhm.
you're wrong. And then come to find out a few months down the road, he nailed it.
Wow.
Or I was hiring this woman to come over and sit my last dog. And he was like, I don't think you should hire her. Like, she's kind of crazy. And I was like, you're wrong. Like, she's really nice. And I, of course, just go and do whatever I was going to do anyway. And then she did end up being crazy. And I'm like, why don't I?
Wow.
It's more and more. I just listen to him because I'm like, you, he does. Like you said, I think you call it like foresight. He has that and I don't.
Yeah, 100%. That's their role almost. I feel like women are like we protect and like have that for our children, and then they're supposed to have that for us.
Mhm.
I love that. And I love that I feel like men are very intuitive as well. Like they're very present, right? So they can feel, well, they're meant to feel like danger and stuff, right? Which is so sweet that he's like, oh, watch out, Sarah. That's crazy.
They're,
Um,
they're so different from us. And when you realize like what you bring and what he brings, and when those two things are combined, it's like magic.
Yeah, which makes me like I'm super curious because what it sounds like from you guys, it's like you work, you have this amazing business, right? Like again, like I'm blown away this week, your summit, so cool. I'm like so happy to have been part of it and just watching it all unfold. You've got this amazing thing going on, and then like you said, he works and does his thing. So is it like, do you feel like it's like a fifth, quote unquote fifth, obviously not because he said he pays more, but like do you feel like it's more like ride or die teammate partner, or like how would you kind of describe that?
It's so that's such a great question. I don't feel like it's 50-50 because I feel like 50-50 is so transactional. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when we go out, he's for sure paying for dinner. Like he's not like, let's split, you know what I mean? Like let's split the check or anything like that. Or
Yeah.
pretty much any time I'm with him, he pays. For
Yeah.
if we go to Costco, if we go to Trader Joe's, if we're anywhere, he never even lets me pay. But
Mhm.
we have common goals. Like we want to buy a house. So we're together, we're saving to buy a house. I give him some money every month that's towards the household bills, but he
Yeah.
makes sure the bills get paid. So like
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't feel 50-50, even though I do contribute. And like I said, like we wouldn't be able to have the life that we have if it were just one of us.
Yeah. We're in the exact same dynamic as well. It's like the same thing. Like we go to dinner, it's him. It's like, and that's like his form of like, oh, I'm going to take you to this super cool restaurant, all the things. But
Yeah.
the reality is that inside of me, like I want to create an empire with him. Like, I'm like not just there along for the ride. And so it is very much like that too. But in our relationship, I do feel like we have like, it wouldn't be like a typical like masculine, feminine, like we do feel like best friend, like ride or die vibe, partners. Like it feels like partners, which is cool. And I don't know about you, but I generally attract clients that want that as well. For
Mhm.
you, like women that work with you, do you feel like they're more so looking for like just really deeply feminine? Are they wanting to have businesses too? Like I'm super curious, like your demographic and the work that you do.
Almost all of my women have businesses,
Cool.
and it's most of them in this type of industry.
Yeah.
Um, I do, I am so inspired by those like very polarized relationships where women are completely provided for and they're like at home making sourdough bread. And there's part of me that's fantasized about that.
Hmm.
But when it comes to actually staying home, like when I was trapped at home all day during COVID, I was not having fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
I did not like that was not the vibe for me. And I also think there's different seasons of life. Like I said, like if you're in the middle of raising kids, like if you've got 3 kids under 3, then it would make a lot of sense for someone to stay at home and raise them,
Yeah.
It just depends. I do there is a lot on the internet right now about being completely provided for. And I don't think that's wrong, but I also don't think it's right. Like it's not the only way.
Yeah, I definitely like I'm curious your thoughts on this and like I'd love to just like chat about this. Like I feel like consciousness in the past was like we shift with consciousness, right? And I feel like back then the consciousness was in a way that one man's income could provide for a whole family. It's not like that anymore, and it almost feels like disheartening for a lot of the men out there right now because you have these girls, you go on TikTok and she's like, I won't go on a date unless he makes at least $100,000 a year. And
Wow.
it's like, okay, first of all, anyone making $100,000 a year, even though that's a good number, you actually realize that's not enough for two people or a family or anything. So there's like immense pressure on men right now to be so like business oriented and like career driven, more than ever. Like he doesn't need to make 6 figures, he needs to make seven, multiple seven, because he has to provide entirely for a woman. And then we wonder why men are less romantic, not even caring about dating anyone. He can't like he physically, like she wants to go to a restaurant for $1,000 dinner, he only makes $1,000 a week. What is he supposed to do?
And then there's like, I've seen this so much and it breaks my heart is the man is doing everything he can to provide. And she's like, why don't you have enough time to spend with me? And it's
Mm,
like, you can't have it. I mean, you can have it all. I absolutely believe you can have it all, but sometimes you can't have a man that's an amazing provider and that takes care of your every need and have him at the same time have a ton of free time as much as like
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
give and take. And you're right, there is no good way right now for a family or even a couple to live off $100,000 a year. It does take I wish it weren't this way, but it does take both people
Yeah. Or
most
it's
of
like,
the time.
or somebody like man or woman with like really big high income skills, because what, like what we're gonna just everyone's gonna have a business, like where are the employees, where are the teams, like it doesn't work, right? So then
Yeah.
we have to think like, okay, most people are not making that doesn't make sense. So we're kind of in like an interesting dynamic in the world right now, like where we live in Toronto, rent is like $3,000 for a one, maybe two bedroom place. To buy a house here, like a literal like shack. They do a lot of these TikToks comparing Texas houses to Toronto. They'll show like this like beautiful Texas mansion. And obviously, I'll send it to my man. It's like beautiful for like it's like big open doors and like all this stuff. 400,000, and then they're like, what you
Yeah.
can buy for 400,000 in Toronto, and it's like nothing. But for $1 million, this like beat down shack, and I'm like, what? So it's like so challenging. And I
Mhm.
understand the women that don't want to work, but that is also like there's like kind of like some entitlement and an arrogance with the vibe of like completely wanting to be provided for and doing nothing and then never being happy if your man's not there, right? That's wounded feminine energy.
Yeah, and I am critical of feminism because I think it was originally intended to give women more choice, but it's actually created a world where we don't have a choice. Like we do have
Yeah.
to work. And for me, it's fine because I love to work, but to me, it is messed up that in our society, a woman can't even take a year off after having a baby.
Yeah.
Like women do have a very, very important role in that we're the ones that bring new life into the world, and that is not supported by our
Mhm.
society. So
Yeah.
we are in, this is the thing with all this work is like, we're not living in the 1950s anymore. And so we have to take this and adapt it to like our real lives today.
Well, that's the thing, because like in real life right now, we are in a collective consciousness of like pure destruction of the feminine. And we chatted about this a little bit in your summit. Like it really is, everything is functional, you know? Like even look in the 1950s, they would do their hair like so like, this won't be a clip, but like so like all these things, like it was all
I
functional.
know.
It was so pretty and like all these dresses and all these things. And even if you go back to like 1800s, like 1700s, like I would love like the corset, like you need like your maid to tie your corset for you, and it's like that was like beautiful, right? And now it's like leggings and sweatshirts, and homes are like modern and there's absolutely no art and no nothing, and there
Yeah.
really is like no room for the feminine anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. There's a ton of conspiracies about like feminism, like honestly, how it was like, I don't want to go super deep into it, but how it was like an agenda for this purpose, you
I'm
know?
starting to believe that. I used to think that it was a good thing gone wrong, but I'm
Mhm.
starting to wonder if it wasn't sinister from the beginning.
Yeah, that's my belief. Like my anything in my world and my worldview, anything that has like anything that's allowed to get really big, it's because it was allowed to get really big,
Mhm.
right?
Just
And
allowed, like shoved down your throat.
uh-huh. Yeah, and I say that because from experience, I feel like I've spoken a lot of truth out in the world, and I was shadow banned for a long time. People would try to follow me. They would have a warning. Do you really want to follow this person? She posts false information. And my account was only at like 10,000. I had my whole account closed. I started a new one, and then everyone would get those warnings. So I've seen from like firsthand how like even just like somehow a small account is being silenced. So when I see really big accounts and really big movements, I intuitively feel like they are backed, because if they were truly speaking truth on a level, they would not be allowed to get that big.
That is so scary and true.
Yeah.
I see it too. There's, I follow, this is unrelated to the topic of
Mhm.
the but I follow this guy, Carnivore Aurelius, and
I love him. Yeah.
he's awesome. He'll talk about like the dangers of seed oils. And I
Hmm.
a couple times have reposted some of his things on that. And I've gotten warnings. Like I've gotten like fact checked. And I'm like, well, now
Yeah.
I know seed oils are horrible for you because otherwise, why would they do that?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's like, and just FYI, on this podcast, we talk about absolutely everything.
Okay.
That's the whole goal. Like, I just want like everyone to just like minds be blown every time they listen to an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually love his page as well because there's just so much truth to it. So that was like one of the things. It just feels like, even I saw this thing on Instagram the other day, like AI wombs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like now they're birthing babies through AI wombs.
Yeah.
There's literally no reason for the feminine anymore.
It's all of this. It's weird how all this dystopian fiction, like 1984 and Animal Farm, and that's all happening.
Yeah, I know. And we're living in this time, which is, it's like, I almost felt a little bit triggered when I saw so many of like similar teachings and doing similar work to ours. And then I just completely let it go. And I'm like, this work is so needed. Like, and I have chills all over. It's like everybody needs to be doing this work in whichever form, because the feminine has to, like, and again, it isn't just the feminine that has to rise, the true masculine has to rise too, because in their destruction of the feminine, they also destroyed the like true masculine as well.
Mhm. I feel like targeting the feminine was the smartest move because we have such a massive amount of influence in our relationships and men are responding to us. So they don't have to target, I mean, they're targeting men now for sure. But at the very
Yeah.
beginning, they didn't have to target men. They just targeted women and we took the whole thing down for them.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I have like chills all over, because think about it. Like, if we think of the principles of the masculine and feminine, it's like he needs to be respected, right? We need to be cherished. You're basically no longer respecting him. He needs to feel needed in some regard. You no longer need him. You're going to open your own door. You're going to make your own money. You're going to do all of these things. There's literally no need for him in your life, which, and then he's not even allowed to explain a topic to you anymore, right? Like true feminists, right? Like you're mansplaining and all these things. It's just like, oh my gosh, like, can we just let the poor man be? And then on top of it, we have like the free, like free your nipple movement and all of these like free your sexuality movements, which then also now it's like you're giving your whole body to a man, and when he has not even created a proper frame for you, he's not even shown anything to you. So now you're giving him the goods. You don't want anything from him. You've basically told him he's useless, right? What are like there's no reason for him to actually become anything.
Yeah. And the only way that a man is still allowed to give to a woman is like through sexual penetration. Like that's allowed. So like, of course, I don't obviously like casual sex hasn't gotten us anywhere, but I do understand that like men want to give in some way. And if that's the only way that you'll allow it, then that's the way that it'll happen.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. That makes so much sense. Yeah, that's crazy because he needs to penetrate. And
Yeah.
like, and he like the masculine penetrates, like, for anyone listening to this, like let a man open the door for you and smile back at him. Like, please, like that's like a form of penetration in a sense. Like him looking at you, smiling, and you smile, like that's like, and he just received, right? But you're right, like women don't even do that. Like a man would be like, oh, smile, and she's like, don't tell me to smile.
I know.
Yeah. And then we complain that he's just like sleeping with
All he
women.
wants is sex.
It's like,
Well,
it's like the only place where you shut up and just let him be himself.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a broken, twisted like game we're playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And
no
now,
one has.
yeah. And now it's like, I think it's almost crazy because now we do have a rise of like feminine feminine women. Like on TikTok, there's so many women now who are like, I want to be provided for. I don't want to work. I don't want to do all these things. But I think that over the years, we've really like kind of like shrunk the masculine. And now it almost feels like women are like, okay, now get up, like be a man, come do all the things. And he's like, whoa, like my mom and my sister and my grandma and all of these women for like years with this feminist movement have been really like beating down the masculine. And now we're expecting him to stand into his power like this. Like, I think it's going to be generations of healing, you know?
Such a good point. Yeah. It's not going to change overnight. And this is why I really believe that, like, I love that there are so many, this is a movement and there are so many women out there, but who are talking about this. And like you said, like being provided for, and even like Carnivore Aurelius is like, the biggest flex is like having your girlfriend quit her 9 to 5 and providing for her. And I do think it's a beautiful ideal, but we have to work with where we're at
Yeah.
as a society. And we have to work with where we're at as men and women, and we have to come together and begin to heal. So it's not probably going to look like this utopian fantasy, but it can really work. Like we can really have great relationships, and
Yeah.
we can really inspire men into their masculine, and we can really begin the healing process right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I also don't think, I really don't think that evolution is ever supposed to go back. And I have so much stuff about that. Like, we are not going back to the 1950s. Like, we are not going back to a man who's out, who has a woman at home, who has, because let's just be real, everyone is like all big on this, like the 1950s were so good, women were at home having babies, things like that. Okay, men were sleeping with their secretary, they were not inspired, they were rude, mean, women were not happy, they were like, like there was just so much problems also. And if you actually look at the children from those generations, it was very toxic, very unhealthy. So why are we trying to go back to that? I don't know. And I'm sure that your partner feels this way, but like my man gets so inspired by my work and all that. I'm like, men love people. Let me just actually stop categorizing us. People love people that are in their passion, in their magic, in their, in what they're here to do. So why are we like, I don't know, like creating some sort of narrative that like a woman's literal only role is just to birth babies and garden? Like, there's
Yeah.
also, to me, it's like, and in David Data's The Way of the Superior Man, he talks about how, the 1950s wasn't right. And now we're like writing this entire thing. And for me, it's union. Like, this is an era and we're moving forward. All of the generations are union. So it's not even like masculine, feminine, it's together. You are a human, you know? You have masculine qualities, you have feminine qualities, and that's it.
But I do agree with you. And I also feel this is why I'm so inspired by like the bro marketers who have figured out how to create a 4-hour work week,
Yeah,
or
I do.
like Tim Ferriss is off like taking dance lessons in Argentina or whatever because he figured it out. But it's like
Yes.
we can figure that out as women too. And then we really, this is what I believe is that we can have the best of both worlds because someone does need to take care of the home and the
Yeah.
children. And we have seen the consequences of no one doing that job.
Yeah.
It
Totally.
is a very like innately feminine talent to be able to nurture and nourish a home.
Yeah.
And we can have a business that we love. And we don't have to go out into like the 9 to 5 corporate world to do that. So I
Yeah.
do think, right, like we're moving forward and like, let's take the best of everything with us.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly how I feel, which is why like it's so funny because in my work I have like one company that's relationships and femininity, and then another one that's like business and becoming your own dream girl and like living life by your feminine design, because you need it all. Like, again, I think that that's like, I think that we get to actually have heaven on earth now, which
Yeah.
is all of it. I want it all. Like, yeah, I do love baking, I love cooking, I really do, like, genuinely. Like, and it's like I love, and my man is like, oh my gosh, when you cook, like when I cook, when I feel like cooking, it's like so good. But I also genuinely love the work that I do. And it's like, I think that, I don't know if it's selfish, but like I feel like a lot of us are in that place where we want it all,
I
you
don't
know?
think it's selfish. I think we're, like you said, we're supposed to keep evolving. And
Mhm.
I think that is the next evolution. And like you said, it's like, I think there are so many dark forces in the world right now, maybe because we are on the brink of heaven on earth. Like
Yeah.
there is a battle going on.
Oh, huge. And I have chills all over it. It truly is. Like, I believe like it is like a conscious war, like it is like a war, and it's on an entirely different level. And I would say that 90% of the population has no idea that we've been at war for like the past like 3 years, you know? Like no one knows, but it is. And if you look, especially like, I don't know, where are you located again? I can't remember.
In Arizona, Tucson, Arizona.
Oh my gosh, I love Arizona. Okay. I don't know how it is for you guys, but like Ontario is like the worst province in Canada. It just got hit so hard with like COVID and things like that. And like if you were to go around, let's say Hamilton, which is like an hour from here, it's people like hunched over on fentanyl. Every single store got closed during COVID. Like it looks like ghost town, war zone. It's crazy. Like it's super sad. And then you have people here like who can't, like we have hotels turn into homeless shelters. So it's like the state of the economy in Canada is like unlike anything else, to the point that you would honestly think that we're at war, because I do feel like collectively and energetically we are, right? It's just it's like cyber war. It's like a psychological warfare and no one knows, which I think is so crazy for all of us like that are aware. It's like it almost feels like you're in it alone. You're like, no, grandma, like there is these things happening. And they just don't
Oh,
see it, right?
it's so true. And I do feel like more and more people are waking up, but it
Mhm.
does feel like a slog. Like it feels like a slow process. And we're, especially because once you realize what's going on, you're like, how can you not see it?
I know. Yeah. And it's like it's interesting because for years I felt like that was my whole purpose. And I really did fall into that. Like everyone, like the majority of people on my Instagram, they followed me because of these things. And it was kind of a trap because I was like so focused on fighting that I wasn't focused on living, you know? So now it's like, okay, what can I actually do? Like the work that I do is so deep. You know, the girls today, I was like, becoming your own dream girl. It's like literally a path of ascension. And it's like, so what can I do to actually help? And my thing, like, I really want a union. I want couples to come together, which is why there's one company there, and learn to love men and respect them and actually build them up, right? And your son too, like the way that I am with my son is so different now as well. Now that I know this work, but then the other path is like wealth and becoming the truest version of yourself and all that you came here to be. Because like I don't know, like all, and I'm sure all of your clients, the work that they're doing is so beautiful, and there needs to be impact and they need to be seen. And families need money because a lot of people had a really hard time these past few years where they felt pressured into doing things. They didn't have choice, they didn't have freedom, they couldn't do what they truly wanted to do in their hearts. And I never want people to experience that again, you know?
I feel so. uh, The very first thing we need is to have our needs met, to have our basic needs met. And I feel like on the spiritual path, or like in the spiritual, new age spiritual realm, it's almost like, oh, don't worry about that stuff. Like just quit your job and launch your business full time. Or like, oh, like it's like to me, I think especially growing up without having much, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, get your needs met, make money, like have a baseline before you do anything else, before you do any of
Yeah.
that. Like, how can you concentrate on bringing your work into the world and fulfilling your passion and service if you're not sure how you're going to pay rent?
Well, that's the thing. And it's so sad. And like that's why I like I was so deeply embedded in New Age years ago and I had to pull myself out of that trap too. And because that, oh my, that like is such a trap too. Like just focus on what you want to create. And it's like, no, somebody's right outside my door, like beating my door down. I have to go address the physical reality as well, right? Like that's a trap in itself. And I know that you have like a religious background, and then I ended up finding like Christ, and I do use a lot of like Bible, but I feel like I'm just like very open now. Today on my call, for some reason, I felt like a pastor. I was just like going through all these Bible. I was like, I don't know what's going on today, but like it all had to come through because there's so much truth, right? But yeah, like it's just, I think that we have to, the root, like the physical reality, which is it's like you need your union with your person, you need your purpose, you need your wealth, you need your home, you need, yeah, like real life. You need to work in, you need to be grounded in the real world and focus on that, you know?
Otherwise, what's the point? Like, why did we come here to have a human experience if we were just gonna like float around in the ethers all day long? Like, He came
Yes.
here to have a, like, to actually have a physical human life. And to do that, you need resources, you need partnership. Like you need I get so annoyed with you don't need a partner because your inner masculine is your lover. It's like, well, that's beautiful, but like we actually do need partnership in real life, like in the
Yeah.
world. Like we need other human beings to create our life with. It's a really
Yeah.
important piece.
Yeah, like you actually need them to go. I know that whole thing is just like so toxic. You need to co-regulate, and let me tell you, like I feel so safe with my man. Like if he's out like one night, like at the banya or whatever, with one of his guys, and I'm going to bed without him, even like the kids in the house are just like they're all everybody's like on not sleeping because we know like his presence is so protective and so powerful, and I sleep so much more soundly, and it's like you need to co-regulate with someone. Like we're not meant to be alone. It's just so wild to me, and like I really do think that that entire thing is a my life is shit. I don't know how to build a business. I have no discipline. So let me go meditate in the astral on shrooms to just avoid all my problems.
Exactly. And I have had my own like return to God,
Yeah.
and untangling that though from like the dresses and the head coverings and the legalism and the like really toxic stuff.
Yeah.
And I am the same, like I am like, well, the Bible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I feel like I have to explain myself because I don't want people to think that I'm talking about what I was raised with.
Yeah.
But I do see more and more people returning to God. And I do see the Bible as so much wisdom. And it does talk about being a human.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole, it's not about the afterlife, really. Like
No.
it's really about being here on this earth, a human in relationship to each other and in relationship to God.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have chills all over it. And it's like I felt like I had to explain myself too so much as well. Because I truly feel like Christ saved, like I'm gonna cry, like Christ saved me multiple times in my life. And I went and got baptized last year, which was like the most powerful experience ever. Like just like the holy fire afterwards and like everything crumbling, and Christ had always been like coming to me because I converted to Islam. I wore hijab. Like I Yeah, and even before that experience, I really felt like the presence of Christ before I converted to Islam. And it almost felt like trying to pull me. I don't want to say the right, like I don't want to trigger anybody. Everyone has their own path and their own thing, but for me that was not the right path for me. Um it felt like, but I ignored it, and then I went in down to this other path which led me to a lot of pain, because it was self-abandonment and contorting for the man and for love, and I ended up getting divorced and being a single mom, so there was so much pain from that decision, but so much still love and like reverence for Islam and all the things I learned. But yeah, like now I'm able to look at things from a very like objective, like I can feel the truth in these things. And I do think that like we're moving to such a beautiful place. Like I do have a lot of hope. It's like, right, like it's like I simultaneously see some pretty crazy things out in the world, but then I also see like a rise of other things, and I'm like there is like a balance happening.
I went down like this dark rabbit hole of like the corruption, what's going on, like how we are being controlled, how we're being lied to during 2020. Like,
Yeah.
don't leave me at home with nothing to do because I will like start researching stuff.
Yeah.
Corey would come home and I'd be in tears. And he was like, you've got to stop. Like, this isn't healthy. And what I realized is that like I can educate myself and I can spend all this time focusing on all of the bad in the world. And there's nothing wrong with being educated. There's nothing, I think it's good to know what's going on, but then it's like, what am I going to do about it? And what I'm going to do about it isn't to like go fight the government. It's like, what kind of life do I want to create? And what kind of person do I want to be? And that's where the power is, not in all of the fear.
Yeah, 100%. Because the fear is a trap. And I think that we all have to go. I do feel like it is because I went through that too during that time. Like I went even deeper into certain things and I was just like, oh my goodness, like there is a lot of stuff. And I think I've met people who turn a blind eye and they're like, I don't want to hear it. Like, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. And I don't think that that's healthy. It's like, no, you should know, like, know what's happening. But then, yeah, be part of the solution, be the embodiment of what you want to create. And I think that that is so much of what you're doing, you know?
And like, it's just so, it's amazing to meet people that are on the same journey, because sometimes it does feel like you're just on your own. It does feel lonely.
Yeah, yeah, I do hear that because it's like such a, I mean, I don't know, but like when I was a little girl, I was like very awake and I felt like I understood a lot of these things. Like I would like talk about how like the government doesn't love us. And like I was little, like 8 years old, and like I just knew. And I felt so alone my whole, like I was bullied and I just like I went through high school very alone. Like I'd have like one or two friends, like no one really understood me. And it wasn't until my 20s and then like later on in life that I started to meet people that were a little bit more awake. And then during the whole past few years, I also felt really alone and like because there was just so much happening and I was just so adamant on certain things, like don't tell me what to do. All like, I'm like very strong-willed in that regard. And so that was also like a really lonely path. And it's not easy. And I almost feel like that's like I don't want to say a test from God, but I do feel like it is like the path of those of us who are like with God. Like it isn't always an easy, rewarding, happy path, right?
It's a narrow way, right?
Like, and I went and got this tattooed like in 2021. The whole verse is like wide is the gate and many find it, but the last part that I got tattooed is but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life and only few find it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I just got the chills now.
I was like, that's like that's like I need to live by this so
Mhm.
that when I'm feeling alone and like I know the path that I'm on, like it's leading to life,
Yeah.
you know? But then look, like we're on a podcast. I had no idea. And then it's like we must have energetically known because we got along so well. And then it's like the conversation shifts and it's like, okay, there's actually so many people who think the way that we think and know what we think. But I think that, I don't know about you, but I think that I'm realizing that being so loud and open about it isn't actually serving the people that I'm here to serve.
Mm,
So, because I used to be very loud, very in your face, like accounts deleted, things like that. And
yeah.
now it's more so like the frequency is felt
Yeah.
and I'm not so in your face, like, because again, it can be like shoving down your throat and people will work with me and they will end up awakening if they
That's
weren't, right?
inspiring. I do feel there, for me, it's been important to use my voice and kind of choose the hills I'm willing to die on. Like
Yeah,
feminism is a big thing for me because
yeah,
it's directly related to the work that I do with women on healing their relationship with the masculine.
yeah,
So I'm willing to die on that hill a little bit. And it does call in the right people because I don't want to have this person get into my program and then be like wildly offended by everything that I say. But I
yeah,
don't need to go on my social media and be like, and talk about like the current political drama of the day, for
yeah,
instance, because that
yeah.
doesn't, not really related to what I'm here to do and who I'm here to serve, even though that is fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like it's similar. Like again, and like I used to be like very like my page was literally just that.
And I
Whereas
love
now,
following people like
yeah,
that
me
I,
too.
but you're right. It's like, what, what is the point?
And I think that like there's everyone has their role and then you need to find yours in it. Like there's still things like I talk about the machine and I like, I don't like to use the word matrix anymore because it means matriarch and I don't want to use that to like that they've made it so negative, just like patriarchy, they've made it so negative, but like patriarch is just the father. So I don't want to use those words anymore. But it's like the machine, it's like the well-oiled machine, like it's a system. They go to school, they get a job, like so I'm
Yep.
very like I will 100% die on that hill, like as you said. And I talk about it because it does also build my business. It's like, no, you don't want to keep working for the machine. You don't want to be enslaved here. You want to have freedom, right? And just using that type of verbiage calls my people in. And
Exactly. Yep.
right? Like, and then usually those people will come in and they might not be fully awake to all of it, but like there's like enough seeds planted. And then it's like, okay, at least we're working with people that, because when I used to be super extreme, like there was no way that any other person would come and work with me, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like a walking between worlds and like, okay, what is God asking me to do? Like, who is he asking me to serve? And, and it's like, okay, well, those people don't necessarily want to talk about all of these conspiracies. They want to talk about their man and love and their business and things like that. But this stuff will come in. It inevitably does, because the feminine learns through frequency, right? So your girls, when they're around you, they're awakening whether they like it or not.
The best part about this past year for me has been meeting women who I had felt so alone until I started to be a little bit more real online, and just meeting people like you, or meeting people like, oh, somehow most of the women who end up in my program are super aligned.
Cool. Yeah.
Like, I'm not like, you've seen my page. Like, I think it's just exactly like you said. Like, you say enough to get the right people in the door, and then you can really have the deeper conversations. And
Yeah.
like, if somebody was saying, I think it was Melanie Anlayer, she was like, you have to follow the rules of the platform, but then take people into other rooms for those deeper conversations. And I
Yeah.
think we'll reach more people that way than if we're constantly being like shadow banned and having our accounts shut down.
Yeah. 100%. And I do think, like, for me, I had to recognize that my like really in your face, like prickly energy was actually a masculine shell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for you, I feel like your page is very magnetic because you are so real. Like that's the femininity. Like we can feel it from your page. It's real. So yeah, of course, you're gonna attract your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Um, which is really cool. So we've been chatting for an hour. I feel like we could chat for hours and
That
hours.
would be so fast.
I know it went by so fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much we could talk about. But I love how that like really just organically moved into the type of conversation that like I want to have on this show. Can you share, like, is there anything else that, because I know you do such like deep work with women, and maybe you just want to share kind of the work that you do or the type of women that you, because women are listening right now and they're like, oh, am I the type of woman that she wants to work with? Like maybe just share who that is, what it is that you do, and then how they can find you. And I know you have a new membership, so please, yeah, talk about all of that.
Most of the women that I work with are they're familiar with the path of the feminine, and they're learning how to implement in their day-to-day life. They're learning how to show up in a feminine way in their relationships. They're learning how to be soft and magnetic and call in the right kind of man. A lot of women who are single and dating, and then women who are in relationships, but they just want to deepen their relationship with the masculine. Um, Really kind of like what you were talking about earlier. It's about coming into union, the men and women coming back together after this like horrible mess that we've made, and learning relationship skills that we weren't taught. I did not see a healthy relationship growing up. I couldn't find it in the media. I couldn't find it in my extended family. And so I really didn't have any idea of what it even looked like. And I came to find this work through that. Like, I came to find the feminine through just really searching. And I'm so thankful, like you said, that there are so many women teaching this now, because we need all the help we can get. We need
Mhm.
all hands on deck. And it is time for this, for us to come back together in union on this planet. And the more the better, the more
Yeah.
work, the better. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, since we're talking about scripture.
Yeah.
So yeah, and my membership coming up, it's a daily Telegram training, and it's a Telegram group. And I just ran a program like this. I ran my love story program, and it's the first time I've ever run a program this way, where it was just daily voice message trainings and responding to all the women in the group, to all their questions. So it was almost like having one-on-one coaching, but through voice message. And then the questions were just turned into trainings that would benefit the entire group. And I felt so connected to these women because I got to drop in with them every single day. And it is the most fun I have ever had creating a program because it was like completely in line with my lifestyle. Like I can do it on the go. I can do it when the inspiration hits. I can read a question and think about it for a minute and then be like, that's it. That's the answer. And just go on and record a training. And just the
Yeah.
daily connection. Where most of the programs I've led in the past, we would maybe meet on Zoom like once a week. And that's nice. I've loved those too, but just being connected every single day. So because of that program, I'm creating a year-long membership. It's very low cost. It's $33 a month for the founding members. It'll go up, but right now $33 a month, and then you can cancel anytime after the first month. So you can come in, try it for a very low cost, see if it's a vibe, see if you like it, but there's no long-term commitment. And it's just going to be this walking this path together in sisterhood, because I do feel that we need each other, and there's so much more that we can accomplish as a collective than individually.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love the Telegram containers. I love Telegram coaching. And like you were speaking my language because my whole like new thing that just like burst through me is like feminine design. And like it's meant to fit your lifestyle. Like, what are people?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
what is happening. So that is so cool. And then where can they find you? So it's Sarah Joe on Facebook and on Instagram is something else, right?
It's embodied underscore blonde on Instagram, and then on Facebook, it's my last name. So Sara Whipp,
Okay,
WH.
cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll put all of those in the description for anyone listening. Is there any last thing that you want to say? Do you feel good? Is there any last little piece of
Oh, I just thank you. This has been the highlight of my day. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And to anyone listening, if you are feeling alone on your journey, you're not. Like there's so many more people out there that are waking up every single day, and we have each other. And I don't know. To me, that's a really good feeling.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And then go join her community and go check her out. I love that. I love the Telegram. I love community. I think it's just like there's just so much beauty in that. And I love the work that you do. You are so like real and down to earth, but also like you got the like Barbie hot girl pose. It's just like so fun. Okay, this was so beautiful. Thank you so much. I feel so grateful and so honored. And guys, I'm sure I'll bring her back, honestly, because it's just so good. Okay. You're so welcome. Okay, bye.